Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to do this video on If I Were the Devil by Paul Harvey. And Paul Harvey wrote a broadcast, If I Were the Devil, in 1965 as a warning about societal and moral decay. He saw, occurring in America during the time of significant culture changes. The pieces was a critical social commentary framed as a hypothetical outline of strategies the devil could use to corrupt a nation. And so some of the key factors of what motivated him to write this article was a reflection of the turbulent 1960s. The mid 1960s were marked by great social and political unrest, a rise of counterculture, and challenges to traditional values. Harvey highlighted what he perceived as increased immorality and the erosion of standards. He also critiqued the materialism. The speech expressed concerns over the growing influence of consumerism, which Harvey saw as distracting people from higher spiritual and ethical values. The perceived decline of religion. Harvey, a Christian, viewed a growing disregard for faith and tradition. So his essay mentions tactics like subverting the churches and substituting psychology for religion. He also was speaking of the removal of religion from public life. In 1962, the U.S. Supreme Court's decision, Engel versus Vitale, ruled against mandatory prayer in public schools. Harvey and other conservatives saw this as a definitive turning point in the secularization of America's society, which he referenced in this essay. It was an appeal to traditional values. As a devil, Harvey outlined how he would weaken the family unit, undermine morality, and promote vice by presenting these as a devil's tactics. He was implicating, endorsing traditional values as a defense against moral ruin. In essence, Harvey used the religion framework of the devil to deliver a potent social critique in the culture and the moral shift he was witnessing. So this was a good take on what his thoughts and aspects were in regards to what was going on around him. Now, the reason I think it's important for us to view this video and talk about it is because it's kind of like when we talk about like 1984, and that was my dog. We talk about 1984 and we talk about, like V for Vendetta, or we talk about the Fourth Turning. I feel like this is also something that's very pivotal to talk about, because I feel like when you hear it, you're going to be like, wow, that's something we're totally going through right now. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that. And then there's one last video I'm going to show you, which also kind of speaks to what's going on in our world as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this video. And this is from If I Were the Devil, Remastered Audio, Paul Harvey. And this is from Ray at thinkbigonline.com. So go ahead and subscribe to him. So let's go ahead and jump into the video.
If I were the devil. If I were the devil. If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. Thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is...
And that's scary, because that sounds like what's happening right now. You have people telling you that the Bible was written by a man, that, man invented God. And then you have people that are telling you things that are bad. Like, for example, with some people on the left talking about, defending pedophilia, or defending people that are, rapists, or people that are human traffickers, or people that, do all these bad things, like the criminals, the ones that steal and rob and murk, and they make it seem like you're a bad person if you condemn those people. And so it's weird, because it's like flipping the script. So it's kind of strange, right?
And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies, and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and...
So you see that so far. It kind of takes your breath away, because you do have people pushing an agenda to put more adult content towards children. So you have the stuff with them having in schools, which the left will say the right was trying to book burn, but they weren't. It's because they were having adult style books in elementary schools. So you had, you know, children anywhere from pre-K to 8th grade being able to have access to this type of books that you would normally probably would deem that if you would get them from a porn store, you'd have to be 21 and over to get into. So I feel like stuff like that should not be accessible to children. It's teaching them about how to go on dating apps. It's teaching them how to lie to their parents. It's teaching them how, like, sexual positions and how to use certain things that, you know, adult stuff. And I don't think children should be learning that. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, you know, sex education. Sex education was literally, when I was in school, it was taught about the birds and the bees. You were taught how a baby's made, how far along, you know, how it comes out. You weren't taught, like, positions, and you weren't taught about, you know, other things. Like, I feel like stuff like that is something that they should be learning when they're adults. You know, let them figure it out. I don't think you should be pushing this on children. The other thing I found interesting was how they are twisting religion. So, you know, you have churches at war with themselves, because you have churches that are trying to capitulate to the modern times, which they shouldn't. They should stick to what the good book says. Because it does say in the good book that, you know, you're not supposed to worship any ideology. You're supposed to follow the law of the land, which is in the Bible. You know, and you don't push for, you know, for example, like marriage was a sacred thing. You know, not having threesomes, not making marriage a joke that you could just divorce. You know, not only that, but the fact that you have a drag queen as a pastor, or you have people pushing these type of ideology of inclusivity, is ridiculous. That's not what the Bible teaches. And what's more reprehensible is the fact that people only come after the Christian and Catholicism. They don't go after any other religion because they would dare not to, because they know that what they would be labeled as. And I feel like Christians and Catholic people have, you know, turned the other cheek for far too long, and it shouldn't be tolerated. You have war within your own family, because just because you think differently, like, let's say, you know, like even in my family, you know, I have people in my family who are a little more left-leaning, or a lot left-leaning. You know, they disown you just because you think differently or because you question it. Like, they want you to walk in lockstep, and it's like, no, I have a right to my own opinion. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean that we don't have to be family. But the left pushes that. You had Kamala Harris, you had, you know, like Jasmine Crockett, AOC, all these people, you know, from the left, like the Democrats, saying, like, well, skip family dinner, skip Thanksgiving, don't have Christmas with them. This is coming from the party that's supposed to be about love and respect, which is a joke. But notice that, like, everything he's saying is something that they're pushing. Like, now, right now, we're seeing it unfold in front of our eyes.
Nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted, until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun.
So far, what he's saying is like tripping me out, because you have that right now going on. You have people that are very patriotic, especially if you watch the video I had of the national anthem. And I can see why people hold it so dear to their heart. And you have these people that are patriots that are being called fascists, Nazis, Gestapo, white supremacists, just for believing in their country. And now it's like patriotism is a dirty word, because again, you don't walk in lockstep with the left. And it's crazy because marriage has become a joke. I know so many people that used marriage like a revolving door. Like, thankfully, I can honestly say, that I've been married for a long time and never been divorced, thankfully, knock on wood. But I have family members, I have family, friends who've been divorced so many times. I've known people that gotten divorced 5 times, and it's like, they don't take it serious. Like, as soon as it gets hard, they're like, okay, I'm out. And it's like, but that's not what marriage was about. You say it, and even in your vows, like, it's through good and bad, through sick and health, like, you can't just stay in a marriage just because it's going great. It's hard work, and you should want to work at it. And then, I've had so many times, me and my husband have people tell us that we're old fashioned. And it's funny to me because we hold on to tradition, like, my husband opens the door for me, or he'll pull out the chair for me. And, I'm very old fashioned where I love to cook for my husband. I love to do everything a wife's supposed to do. And, there's no shame in that. Like, I hate that people shame you for wanting to be a good wife or wanting to be a good husband. There's nothing wrong with that. And, people think it's weird because of the way me and my husband are, but it's not something that's old fashioned. It's just good old respect and love, And you have a lot of people that just use it as just a title, and then when they get tired of it, they move on. It's disgusting. And then even what you see on TV, it's getting more and more illicit. And I'm always shocked when I see like children's show talking about stuff that I feel is so inappropriate, like drags on children's show. Why? Like, I'm so thankful, like, my kids are older, but I wouldn't even begin how to explain that to my child, why a grown man wants to dress this way. Like, I feel like kids should be learning about ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, stuff like that. I don't think they should be learning about drag queens, or, like, them thinking I'm a boy or I'm a girl. Like, honestly, if you would have took younger me and dropped me into nowadays, they probably would have, because I was like a tomboy, they probably would have said, oh, you're a boy now. And I'm like, no, because I grew out of that, that phase of being a tomboy and being all sporty. I liked sports, like, that didn't make me a boy for liking sports, And I might not have dressed girly back then, but as I got older, it changed and I became a little more girlier. Then there's nothing wrong with that, but they just push this ideology so much on people that they don't let people be people no more. They don't let kids be kids. Like, let them enjoy their childhood. Like, why are you ruining it for them? But let's go on.
That what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey.
And so that just reminds me of the movie The Usual Suspects.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. And like that, he's gone.
And so now I want to show you one last video before we kick it off. So this video I also found very interesting. There are like some aspects of it where I don't agree, but I think it's still a good video. And this one's called "Can You Say Why America is the Greatest Country in the World?" And this is coming from Christopher L. Webster. So go ahead and subscribe to him. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm a sophomore, and this is for all three of you. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis?
Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Will?
The New York Jets.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world? Why is America
Not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes.
Let's talk about...
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of our paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey. And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom.
So I got to stop him there because, yes, you have countries like Canada that has freedom. You have countries like the UK that has freedom, but it's not the same type of freedom America has. Because you have these countries, for example, like the UK, who are not allowed to have guns. Right now in Canada, if you watch the Canadian Prepper, and I would recommend you to watch his channel, he's so good. He has two channels. One is the Canadian Prepper, which he teaches you about good prepping tools, what to have, what not to have. You know, he tests things out. He's fantastic. He also has another channel called the Canadian Prepper News, which is also good. He was one of the first people I watched when it was coming out about the stuff that was about to pop off in Ukraine and Russia. So he was on it before it popped off. But he had just recently said in a video that that they're trying to take their Second Amendment rights away in Canada, that they cannot have guns, and that I believe it's supposed to go into effect by next year, but I'm not 100% sure. I gotta kind of go rewatch that video to kind of give you guys more details about that. But yeah, our country is the greatest. I do want to say specifically that I don't agree with that statement that he's saying. Even though there are countries with freedoms, look at what's going on in China with the Uyghurs. They're being captured because of their religious beliefs and harvested for their organs. Look what's going on with some people. There's people in Africa that are still endangered slaves. You still have slavery going on in certain countries. Then look at the UK. They already are doing the whole 1984 thing with the thought police. Like, there were people just trying to explain about, grape culture that was happening with the migrants, and people were getting thrown in jail. People are getting their house visited and, their phones taken away for liking a post. That is total 1984 thought police. That is not a free country. Our country is the greatest country, and it is the freest country, because nobody would want to be here if it wasn't. You wouldn't have all these illegals trying to come into our country if it wasn't the greatest. We have the freedom of, religion, the freedom of expression, we have the ability to have our Second Amendment. We have great freedoms here, and that is the only part I disagree with what he's saying.
UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed.
And that's what you're seeing right now. That's what this whole culture war that's happening amongst us right now is happening. You know, right now we're kind of like in between civil strife and a civil war. And it's because you have people that are fighting because of how they feel, and you have other people doing it for moral reasons, for what's actually truly right and wrong. You have people that are patriots because they believe what our country stands for. They're not trying to break it. They're not trying to turn it into communism or socialism or become like other countries where you have thought police. They're fighting for our right to live, our right to be able to stand on our feet instead of dying on our knees. So yeah, we have that going on in our country right now. And so that's why I wanted this video to play, because there are some things that 100% I agree with, and there's others where I'm like, hold up, bro, hold up.
Struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed, we cared about our neighbors, we put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men, men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
And that's also the reason why Trump, because this is an old video, but that's also why Trump ran, because he wanted to bring it back to its great glory days, you know, where we were a great country, and we still can be. I mean, we're not like a crap country. Like, nobody would be trying to get in here if we were, you know? So we are a great country. We have so many great things coming for us. Most of these people that are on the left that are even outside as we speak, protesting ICE, protesting for any injustice that they think is injustice. If we weren't such a great country, they wouldn't even be allowed to do that. Try doing that over there in North Korea. Try doing that in China, and let me know how that works out for you. Go to Iran and do that. Go to Iran, women, and dress like the way I dress, or like the way they dress in Cali, and let me know how that works out for you. Because trust me, you'll realize how great our country is when you go to other countries where they literally stop you from doing anything. Then it will click in your little brains that this America, what we have is great, and we need to protect it, you know, no matter what the cost is. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Oh yeah, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. Talk to you soon.